What's going on, guys? Jabba Swifty here, aka Jabba, and the First Descendant's first expansion is on the horizon. It will bring us Ultimate Blair, the brand new Descendants Arena, and possibly a whole drove of new players. So I figured, why not create a playlist that compiles all of the best reactor farms in every sector, in every biome across Ingress. So that way, no matter what reactor you're personally targeting and where it's located, you know the best farm for it. Today, we're going to be covering Kingston and Echo Swamp. Let's get to our first location. In Misty Swamp, you're going to find 3 missions. Now, the first tip I want to give, especially to new players, when you're farming in any given location, you want to look for a mission that's labeled Extermination. Now, typically, these missions can be completed in around 30 to 40 seconds, and I know there are farms that are about 5 minutes, but you can complete these missions 10 times in those 5 minutes, and most of the time netting you more enemies, thus more reactors. So for Misty Woods, our mission of choice is going to be Hazy Swamp. This mission can be completed in just about 40 seconds. The pros of this mission is the fact that all the enemies spawn in one generalized location. If you were to use Freyna, you pretty much enable AFK farming at that point. Now my cons are the fact that there is a small delay between some of the mob spawn times, and the fact that you have to run around this wall to then boop the green diamond to start the instance. It's a small thing, but it's kind of annoying. Alright, let's get to the results of Hazy Swamp. In our first hour, we received 260. In our second hour, we received 280 reactors. In our third hour, we received 310, being our most lucrative. Now, mind you, I was completely autonomous by the third hour, using Ultra Instinct. But I digress. Let's get to the next location. Next up, we have Abandoned Zone and Echo Swamp. If you've been playing the First Descendant for a while, close to release, right now you're probably like, oh shit. And if you're new to the First Descendant, I'm about to put you on game and give you the keys, okay? Now, our mission of choice in the Abandoned Zone is going to be the Environment Contamination Zone. Now, when the First Descendant first dropped, this was the mission for gold, Kuiper, weapon proficiency, and now for reactors, this is the main squeeze in this sector. This mission can be completed in 30 seconds. It's a very quick rinse and repeat. Now, when it comes to this playlist / series that we're doing, Bunny, Anise, and Freyna are going to be interchangeable for majority of the missions. Now, there will be some missions where one of them might outpace the others, and in this case, that's going to be Bunny. There's a specific moment where these enemies spawn in like these little caverns below you, so having a high voltage build with some skill expansion, you can just run around in a circle above it, kill them all, and just keep on moving with the mission. Now, another tip, which might be a little gratuitous at this point, where you finish the mission, at the end of that cave, there's a little opening, you can jump right back on through and go restart the mission. It shaves a couple seconds off of the time it takes to restart the mission. I know it seems a little silly, but I wish I knew. Let's get to the results of the Environment Contamination Zone. Alright, in our first hour, we received 292. In our second hour, we received 307. And in our third hour, we received 301. There are reactor farms across Ingress that I consider to be 5 stars, that even if I'm not targeting the current reactor dropping in that sector, I might just farm it for an hour because you just get so many of them. And if you don't get any good rolls, RNGesus is not on your side, you can dismantle them for quantum crystals. It's a win-win. Let's get to the next location. Now, for Derelict Covert, our mission of choice is going to be the Verdant Greenery. Again, another extermination mission. At first, I wasn't too fond of this mission, but I believe I found the most efficient way to complete it, and our recommended descendant for that is going to be Anise. Now, let me show you what I mean by the most efficient way. Okay, once you start the mission, there will be 3 or 4 enemies that spawn to your left. Just pop off a couple of electric bolts. You'll go ahead and take care of those guys. Hit this terminal, and there will be 1 enemy that spawns up top here. But what you're going to do is you're going to put your back to this wall and then pop off a snare hunter right at that spawn point. That's going to do a couple of things. It's going to take care of these guys, obviously, but it's also going to take care of the enemies that spawn up top here. You'll see, and there's enemies that spawn up top here, and it'll take care of those ones. Now, the reason why we have our back to this wall is because there's enemies that spawn up behind us, and by just standing here, Anise will throw her electric bolts through the cave, as she usually does, through the walls, my bad, and kill those enemies there. And again, you can pretty much just AFK this farm, which is why I really do like it now at this point. And once the final boss spawns, you can just pop a snare hunter over by his way and just head back over to the spawn. And by the time you get there, it'll be mission complete. Rinse and repeat. Let's get to the results for Verdant Greenery. Okay, so in our first hour, we received 288. In our second hour, we received 303, and in our third hour, we received 297. Now, there was an argument being made for the Field Energy Station multi-hack mission just northeast of the Verdant Greenery mission, but after doing a couple of these farming videos, and as you guys can see, I farm each location at least 3 hours to try to get as much data as I can. I've noticed that with the longer missions, these multi-hacks, the Kuiper mining missions, the game kind of knows that they're longer. The game knows that these are 5, 6, 7 minute missions, so it feels like the drop rates for reactors are lower due to this fact. Now, again, this is just me going off of what I've seen and off the data that I've collected from doing a lot of these farming videos. But yeah, I do believe that extermination is going to be some of your best bets, but that is not the case for our next location. For Kingston Echo Swamp, our mission of choice is going to be the Arc Motion Sensor Defense mission. Now, one of my biggest pros about this mission is just how centralized the enemy spawns are, and that leads me to my next point. You don't need that much damage. You do not need that much damage. When you're out here farming in these different biomes, you do not need the most mid-max, cracked out character you possibly can have. Honestly, if you guys saw my farming build that I have for, like, let's say, like, Eden East, you'd probably be like, what the hell? and honestly, my pro gamer move / tip, if you will, the more skill duration and the more skill effect range that you have, the more AFK you can go with the farm. And this mission here, the Arc Sensor mission, is the perfect example, because once you build up enough plasma, you can just pop a snare hunter right in the middle and just stand there, admire the yacht. I don't know, just it's like, I used to come into these missions with, like, again, everything mid-max to the peak, and then one day I didn't have the right build on, and I was like, yo, they're dying, bro. It's like, I didn't even have focus on electric on, I didn't have front lines on, I didn't have pretty much any damage, and it was just one-shotting everything, and I'm like, oh, you don't need that much damage, guys. Okay, let's get to the results of our Arc Motion Sensor. In our first hour, we received 233. In our second hour, we received 265. And in the third hour, we received 258. After taking in all that toxicity from Echo Swamp, we jumped back to Albion, did a quick detox in the hot springs, and had ourselves a little dance party. Couldn't help myself, man. Yeah, all right, let's get to Kingston, bro. Okay, in the Fallen Theater, our mission of choice is going to be the Vulgus-occupied buildings. Now, since Kingston is the starting area, this mission here only takes like 20 seconds to complete, so you're going to be killing way more enemies in an hour, thus yielding you more reactors. Okay, let's get to the results of the Vulgus-occupied buildings. In our first hour, we received 545. In our second hour, we received 526. And in our third hour, we received 532. As you can see, the yield for reactors in Kingston is slightly higher, but it probably goes without saying that no one farms the same. Your Ultra Instinct might be better than mine. You might restart the mission faster, get back to the start point faster, thus yielding you more reactors in the prior missions that I've shown you. So with that being said, let's get to the next location. For the Grand Square, our mission of choice is going to be the Kingston Surveillance Radar. My recommended descendant will be Freyna. Now, this mission is very reminiscent of Rockfall. You can stand on one platform with Freyna and throw poison to all of the Vulgus spawn points. Another good thing about this mission is that the Vulgus spawn pretty quickly after another. As we saw in Echo Swamp, there are some missions where once you kill a mob, it takes a while for the spaceship to even spawn in, then spawn the mobs. I wish that all the extermination missions were like this. Okay, let's get to the results for the Kingston Surveillance Radar. In our first hour, we received 386. In our second hour, we received 374. And in our third hour, we received 377. As I touched on in that last segment there, the amount of reactors that you personally receive may vary slightly just due to a couple seconds here, a couple seconds there, but over the course of an hour, those seconds do add up. So with that being said, let's get to our last location. All right, for the destruction sector of Kingston, we're going to be going with the Kingston Communications Repeater, which is a defense mission. Now, my biggest con about this is how you have to hit like 3 or 4 of those green diamonds to actually start the instance. But once you do that, you can just jump down into the center of what I presume to be a chapel. Just spam Anissa's skill 1 and just kill everything around you. Also, once you complete that mission one time, you should have enough plasma that you can stand on this little platform on the 2nd floor and just pop off your snare hunter. And if you have enough skill effect range on Anissa, it'll kill everything around you. Could just stand right there. Let's get to the results of the Kingston Communications Repeater. All right, in our first hour, we received 356. In our second hour, we received 364. And in our third hour, we received 352. That's my list of the best reactor farms in Kingston and Echo Swamp. If you like this video format, appreciate it if you guys give the video a like. Jabba out.